Welcome to episode 18 of the 24-Hour Hustle Show, and today we got founder of Motormouth Multimedia. Welcome to 24-Hour Hustle. I'm your host, Anthony Freeze, and today we got special guest, Heather Hopson. She is the founder of Motormouth Multimedia, and it is such an honor and a privilege to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Hello, everyone. It's an honor and privilege for me to be here. I watched the show. I learned so much information. I didn't really consider myself to be an expert, to be invited on, so I'm really excited to be here.
I mean, to be honest, you've been highly recommended, though. From at least two people that have been on the show, co-workers of mine. So you're definitely doing something out of the ordinary. So
that's great. Very humbling.
Absolutely, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about your background for people who do not know who you are.
So I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, and always had a gift to gab. In fact, I talk so much, my parents nicknamed me Eminem, not for the candy, but for Motormouth, hence the Motormouth Multimedia years later. Mm-hmm. So it was nice because they weren't the parents that said children should be silent, children should listen, not speak. And so they always gave me this platform, this to be able to elevate my voice and to ask questions and be curious and explore new things and share my ideas. Sometimes they would pay me money to be quiet, but I'm like, forget it, it's not worth the dollar.
Yeah.
I have something to say. And so just being nurtured in that has helped me really establish a voice. And so, that's about it. I think I took my love of talking a lot and was able to turn it into a career. I went to school for journalism, attended Michigan State University, and when I graduated, I worked as a television reporter throughout the U.S., and then I worked overseas in the Cayman Islands.
Nice. So what inspires, so I know you say you talked a lot, but what was it about, you having something to say or the creative ideas you had? What was it that, you would say inspired you to go in that avenue?
I was a curious kid. I had lots of questions that I wanted to seek answers to. I loved meeting new people. I can pretty much talk to anybody. I came to Whole Foods before I came here, and I'm having a conversation with the person behind me in line. I just like to get to know people's stories and share different perspectives, unique perspectives, because I think oftentimes we think our opinion is our reality when, in fact, it's our opinion, it's our viewpoint. And when you talk to more people, you learn that it's not about what's right or wrong, but rather a perspective. And it's important for people to be able to share their thoughts with one another, because there's a lot of places, even within the U.S., that people aren't given that opportunity to speak. There's lots of vulnerable populations. So my work through Motormouth Multimedia is really to elevate that diverse voice and make sure that people have a seat at the table, that they're being heard, that they're sharing their stories, and really increasing awareness about important issues.
Right. And that's great to have a lot of people that are around you that have a lot of different perspectives and a lot of different opinions, because you can see things from a different lens. One of the things that I find that, and I don't think a lot of people talk about this enough, but a lot of people may think a lot of the same or similar ideas, but one of the things that is very unique to each of us is our perspective and the way we look at different things, because you and I may be looking at a certain situation and both have a unique perspective on it, and that interests me a lot, because how is it that something that is looks the same, sounds the same, we both heard it the same, but for whatever reason we looked at it differently? I just feel like that unique perspective with people is definitely very interesting, and when we learn other people's perspectives, we actually learn a lot more.
Right. It's so important. When I lived in the Cayman Islands, there were more than 100 nationalities represented on the island, and I think that was the biggest educational experience that I had beyond college, beyond any sort of certification courses or training that I had, was just being surrounded by people of different races, different identities, different religions, different perspectives. And oftentimes when you had a conversation, it's like you find out we're more alike than we are different. I think especially within the Black community, we seem to sometimes be crammed into the same storyline, as if we have these interchangeable parts and you can just, have like one Black perspective.
Right.
Black people are this or that, but there's so much diversity within the race. And that's why it's really important to, not judge a book by its cover. I know that's cliche, but get to know somebody, get to learn about their story, get to close your mouth and listen. I always try to say, someone said once, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and I talk a lot, so I try to make an effort to listen a little bit more. And one tip, actually, through a Leadership Pittsburgh program that I participated in. So for all your viewers who do talk a lot, to listen, he said, if you physically close your mouth, like try it. If you're doing it, you probably know this tip as a host. But if you physically close your mouth, you're less likely to cut somebody off. You're less likely to be thinking about what you're going to say to interject. And, it works. So, that's so important. I think there's so many issues that are going on, problems that are happening in this world. If we all listen to the other person's perspective, even if it's totally different than ours, we may not agree, but we can understand one another a bit better and be able to live in, peace and harmony.
I mean, and that's the whole thing with me, like that. I definitely want to write a section on this in the book, just talking about perspective, because, even to your point, like you don't necessarily have to agree with someone's perspective, but just having that understanding of why someone sees it from that viewpoint is all the better. And you don't have to have this huge argument, or maybe not even have to have a disheartening relationship, but just having the understanding of someone in their thought process and the way they see things, I feel like is definitely valuable for just having a cohesive relationship.
Right, and that perspective changes. For instance, I grew up in a 2-parent Christian suburban household and was raised to where I focused a lot more on career. I wasn't sure if I was going to get married or not, but I did know I'm not going to have a baby before I'm married. I'm not going to live with somebody before I'm married. And my perspective changed when I became a single mother, because based on that experience, it changed my outlook. Not that, I don't want to get married or don't want to do certain things in life. So I think sometimes we may judge someone, or we may have an opinion based on our own existence and not putting ourselves in someone else's shoes.
Having that empathy is definitely important too. Just in the understanding is definitely critical. And also, just as far as like listening goes, from what I find, and one of the best things I've learned is, the people who learn the most are people that listen. You don't learn from anything that you regurgitate,
because you already know it, right?
Exactly. Like you don't learn anything new from what you're physically saying. You only learn things when you're actually absorbing new information, which is actually one of the great things about doing this show. I listen to people all day long, so I get to absorb the most. So, and also just in return, just giving that value to other people. I mean, listening is definitely the key to be able to get the information that you need or want to obtain. So, in moving forward, whenever you wanted to start Motormouth Media, which came first? Did you start doing that first, or did you start doing the Diary of a First Mom first?
Yes. So I started out as a mom blogger. When I became a mom, it was a big transition. It was a difficult transition because I went from being a television reporter and traveling and going all these exciting places overseas. And, a year or so later, when I became a mom, I was a stay-at-home mom for the first year. So for the first 6 months, although I adore my daughter. She's amazing. She's beautiful. She's bright. But I felt as though, I'm a mom, but I was also a woman first. How can I merge my two loves, journalism and a baby? So Diary of First Time Mom was born on my first Mother's Day. And It's been going strong ever since. It's a parenting website that is aimed at African-American mothers with children between the ages of 0 and perhaps 6, 7. It grows as my daughter grows. Although the stories are written with all mothers in mind, no matter what race, it really targets Black moms and talks about specific issues in our community, such as the high infant mortality rate in Allegheny County, the high rate of single mothers, the low rate of breastfeeding. So arming us with information, providing this safe space for us to support one another, encourage one another, and celebrate one another along motherhood, because, it's one of the biggest accomplishments that I've ever had in my life. It's bigger than a degree, bigger than a job title, and sometimes we kind of take it for granted. So to build this community up is really important. So I started really just to share my story. I had got dumped over the phone during my second trimester by right.
You don't want to do anything over the phone, fellas. Like, be a man and do it face to face.
It was devastating, but it was on the horizon. It wasn't a shock. My daughter's dad and I were together for about 3 years. And just that going through that writing helped. And I did it more so for me. It was like free therapy, but it turned into a business eventually. I originally started and grew an audience, and then people are contacting me of, this happened, and you realize that you're not alone, that there's other people that go through some sort of hardship, and, your burden is transformed into a blessing. And it started out as building a community and being able to write and being able to elevate voices of African-American mothers to, oh, wait, I can make money off of this. So I started working with different PR agencies, different national brands. Later, as I, built the blog over the years, turned it into a business. So it's a parenting website, and I've worked with brands such as Aquafresh and Disney and Macy's. And then I've also served as a blogger spokesperson for companies such as Denny's, Netflix, Playtex Baby, and the list goes on and on. So, just taking something that you think is tragic and turning it into a triumph, I think my website helped me do that.
Absolutely. And you've been able to gather a nice following as well. I know on your Facebook page is well over 1,000 people. So you have people that, enjoy that authenticity. And I feel like when you merge those two passions together, it came off real, it came off genuine, and people see that and they are able to connect to your story.
Thank you.
So, and it was funny at the beginning of this episode, you were like, I don't know if I have a lot going on. You have a lot going on, even just in saying that. And then you have also Motormouth Multimedia, which you also started as well. So what inspired you to, start that up?
So I think what happened was the website was growing, and I had to contract videographers and photographers to create content when we were working with different people. Like Steve Harvey flew us out to Florida to do something with Disney, and all these things were going on, and I couldn't do it myself. And just like an evaluation of what your strengths are and what your areas of improvement are, I realized I can't do everything on my own. I need to build out a team. And at the time, I was working as a communications director, and I had to kind of weigh, do I jump and pursue my passion, or do I, I loved what I did, and I also had that comfort of like having stability and a salary and benefits. So, through a lot of prayer, I decided to pursue communications consulting full time, and hence was the birth of Motormouth Multimedia. That was what the parenting company for Diary of First Time Mom was, but it expanded to where now we have a collective of creatives and consultants of color.
That's awesome. What would you say was one of the biggest challenges that you faced initially, and how did you overcome that to get this off the ground?
I think the challenge, wow. Not to say that it was easy, but there was just so much preparation. Sometimes people see the end, like you see the Facebook posts when someone's celebrating a success, but you don't really see the blood, sweat, and tears that lead up to that. And, for years just working and putting together templates and, like just learning how to not only be a writer and a communications director, but also how to run a business, how to be a leader. I participated in the Leadership Pittsburgh program. I'm now serving on the Leadership Pittsburgh board, and that really helped me develop some of the skills to be able to manage a team. So we subcontract folks. So no matter the size of your project, we're able to customize your campaign, customize the work for efficiency and effectiveness. And, so there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff, and, it's a constant learning and growing process. You don't just, expand a business and then stop, or form a business and then stop. There's always something that, I'm reading, that I'm learning, I'm watching your show and just taking in tips. It's just constant growth.
Is there anything that you would say is helping you grow the most? Like, is there any specific books that you like to read, or podcasts, or where you
read?
Okay, where are you gathering your or audiobooks? Where
just
you
beyond the Bible? I don't know. Just time wise, I started to listen to audiobooks because I hate to admit this because I am a writer. I should read more. That was my passion growing up. But there's audiobooks. I think just with people, like people within the collective, behind the scenes right now, Robert Waters is on camera, just talking to him about photography, videography, hearing his ideas. And, that saves me time, right? From Googling, talking to you offline about what you do with social media to be consistent, to be impactful, to reach and grow your audience. So I think just, back to that whole communications, learning from people. There's so much that we can learn from people who spent years researching, years studying, and it can
people
really...
that already did the work.
Right. It can save you time by building relationships. And I don't want to say by networking, but actually building relationships. So where there's a give and take, where you're learning and sharing and just kind of pursuing this path in collaboration. And that's the whole thing with Motormouth. It is in collaboration, because I can maybe achieve this much by myself, but it's like, it's my daughter always says, I love you to the heavens and back. It's like the sky is the limit. When you collaborate with like-minded professionals, you can do so much more. And that's so important in the Black community, because everybody says, sometimes they say, oh, well, I can't come together with someone because I don't agree, or there's this competition. But to me, there is no competition. What God has for me is for me, and who am I not to bless somebody else with information? Because there's people who pour wisdom into me. Someone told me, I had a boss once that used to say, don't give away the secret sauce. And it's like, why not? Why not? Because it's like, it's like when your mom cooks, right? My mom makes greens and she can give me the recipe and I cannot touch her collard greens.
Right.
She grew up in the South. She watched, generations and generations of people, she can pinch, she doesn't even have measuring cups, really. And so I can't, even if she gave me the recipe. So, why not share information? Who says that there's only one successful person, one person who is, there's tons of people within your field that should succeed. So why not collaborate and help one another? Because if you achieve your dream, and if you're in a higher position, you can help me. You could perhaps get me a contract, introduce me to someone that that I can feature on my website, or become a spokesperson for whatever their brand is.
Absolutely. And also to your point, as far as like sharing the secret or giving ideas and things like that, I'm definitely open to giving ideas and secrets to everything, because if you're adding value to other people, they can also return value to you too. But also to your point, as far as like worrying about somebody, they stole my idea or something like that. I mean, you can't be too cautious to the point where you don't share it at all. And you can't be, you can't give it out so much to the point where you feel like somebody's going to steal it. But it all comes down to the point of, you can give somebody the idea, but can they execute it at the end of the day?
Exactly. Because sometimes you have that, you do have that secret ingredient, really. So in that secret sauce, only you know if you do X. If they could do the same exact thing, but maybe it doesn't work because you have relationships with people who may log on and share your post. It may, connect you to someone. So it's like, why not? Why not give out information for free? There's so much. Like, for instance, my friends and I started a free store in Penthouse, free store Penthouse. Yeah, I
was going to ask about that next.
It's in the Lincoln Park Community Center. So it's basically a consignment store minus price tags where we give things for free. And sometimes people think you need money or you need, there's so much free stuff, whether it's knowledge, whether it's things that can support one another. And, our store is full and we have like a very small budget to operate the store. So it's like with knowledge, with things, it's like, I believe kind of like the more you put out in the universe, the more, it's kind of like that, you reap what you sow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I'm definitely a firm believer in that. Actually, I say this on the show a lot, and one of the things that I highly believe in is if you help enough other people get what they want, you'll get everything that you want. And I totally believe in that. I mean, if you just genuinely just help other people, I mean, and they feel like they've been, served and feel like they've been valued and appreciated, they're automatically, if they're a good person, going to want to return the favor.
Exactly.
So, I mean, and that's what it's all about. So.
Exactly. And sometimes your idea isn't, because sometimes I'll come up with something and I'll think that I have to execute it. But maybe God gave me that inspiration and said, okay, give it to Anthony. That's something that I want him to walk out. And sometimes you may even start something, but you have to pass the torch to someone else. So, you don't have to hoard your ideas, especially if you're someone who, I can come up with an idea every single day.
I feel like
and I know I don't have enough hours in a day to really execute that and implement that plan. So sometimes, your job may be just to connect someone to someone else. Your job may be to come up with an idea. Your job may not be to be the person to fully, walk that idea out.
Absolutely. And I feel like me and you're the same way as far as like coming up with ideas and have a ton of things. I mean, I write a ton of ideas down and things like that. Even like for coming up with this show, there's no way I would have been able to do this by myself. And shout out to Rob because he doesn't know. He's behind like laughing right now.
He's like,
but
why are you? I'm behind the scenes for a reason.
He's like, why are you mentioning me? But dude, he has no idea like how much I appreciate what he's done to be able to put this off, because there's no way I would be able to pull this off on my own.
And we talked about that before we hit the record button, is that sometimes people are so focused on money, and what can I do that will generate wealth? Well, sometimes you have to build a portfolio. Sometimes, you may not be getting paid, but you are pursuing your passion. And, if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, there may be a payday down the line. It's like you want to be authentic, you want to be genuine in whatever you do. And by collaborating, the three of us before we got started, we're thinking of different ideas and how we can support one another. You have this equipment, I have this software, kind of like this barter and trading to get to that point of success. And success is defined differently by everybody. It's not necessarily wealth to me, because it's like, I like to give things away for free. I like, I'd rather achieve have a peaceful, content life than to be, very wealthy and miserable. It's like, what is my purpose? What was I sent here to do, and try to walk that out, and not so much focus on money, focus on, this idea is just for me. And that kind of leads into like what I've learned through this process is sometimes I want things to be perfect because I have a very high standard. But what I've learned is sometimes you just have to pull the trigger and not sit on an idea for a year and just do it. It might not be perfect, but you can come back and revise it. You can come back and tweak it. It can grow and grow instead of like never really, taking that leap of faith.
Yeah, nothing started out, exactly the way the vision started out. For Facebook, when it first started, was called The Facebook, and they started out. Yeah, I know, right? Who likes that name? And that went through a lot of changes. Amazon, where it's at today, they start out just selling books. Now they sell practically everything. Right? So it's like, if you feel like you want to get something, you don't want to pull the trigger. If you feel like you want to pull the trigger until it's like absolutely perfect, that is not the right idea you want to have. You want to, get it off the ground, at least get it started, and then it's going to go through its phases of, changes, and people are going to be able to see the journey of how it grew and things like that. And I feel like that's more rewarding as well too, just to see where it started and where it's going is also rewarding too.
Right. And speaking of pulling the trigger, it's like you have to pull the trigger and then you have to learn like when to let something go. My sister always tells me, let it go. Like there's certain things, you may start a project, you may put a lot of time, love, devotion into the project, but perhaps you have to pass it on to somebody else. Perhaps that idea didn't work. No matter how much you liked it, maybe it's a topic for a book and nobody bought it. Let it go, start another book. Maybe it's, it could be really anything. But I think sometimes in this world, because it's so microwave, because it's so run and gun, we're doing so much and we're trying to compete and we're watching Facebook and trying to keep up with the threads. Where, in 2018, my new, I guess, resolution in a sense is to focus. Like how can you focus and be impactful? Instead of doing 20 things and having 20 ideas, what are 5 ideas that you can really develop and really implement successfully instead of being pulled in 100 different directions?
And in this day and age, that can be tough because there are a lot of different distractions. Social media alone could be a big distraction if you don't know how to focus in on what you want to do, whether it be your passion or your ideas or anything like that. So this is probably, it's also, there's pros and cons to social media, but it also is the most chaotic as well because there's so much information out there. Everybody's pushing out so much content.
Right. Sometimes you have to unplug. Right. And you may be thinking about a project or an idea. You may have to mute those notifications. Yeah. And sometimes social media can be depressing to people because they see, there's all this stuff going on. But sometimes, it's just what people show. For my blog, for instance, if I have a sponsored post, so an agency or a company might hire me and say, Heather, do this story about this product. We're going to pay you money to do that. It might be a crazy weekend, but I have to meet that deadline. Yeah. You're not going to see dishes in the sink. You're not going to see toys thrown all over the room. Right. I'm going to pick this clean area. So that's what you have to think. When you look at social media, it's not like everybody has these perfect lives. Right. They're only, and I'm pretty transparent. So you'll see, you'll see some of the messiness and the chaotic and everything. But, you have to remember, they may just be positioning and taking that picture in this perfect little tiny corner where it may be chaotic. Yeah. And sometimes, as a blogger, I can get hired for things in the beginning and take trips and go all these amazing places, but you're not getting paid for it. So it's you can't really compete with other people because it's going to be a constant. There is no end. There's always going to be somebody that's better, that's brighter, that's skinnier, that's prettier. It's enough is enough with trying to keep up with, to reach this standard. You have to set your own expectation.
And I feel like when you are transparent, even with your blogger and your page and stuff like that, people connect with the transparency and they connect with the stories because they either see that within themselves or they see themselves being in that position one day.
Right.
And that's the way
it comes across more genuine.
Exactly. That's the way to really cut through the noise, just being transparent, being genuine, and having people connect to your story at the end of the day. And I feel like that's what you do, and you do a very good job with that. So just kind of getting to the end here, what's like the big goal for you in like the next 2 to 5 years? Where do you see yourself in going in the future as far as goals, ideas, anything?
I think it's to continue to elevate voices of women of color, specifically African-American moms. Right now, Robert actually is one of the partners on a project called Single Mom Defined. And we're basically giving a more accurate definition of single black motherhood than what society presents. When you Google single black moms, all these negative things come up, such as we're trash, we're not fathers, we're irresponsible. But, that's not the single moms that I know. When I look around, I see women who are resilient, who are resourceful, who are forgiving, who are compassionate. So I think my goal is to continue to combat that negative narrative that society presents and show the real story of African Americans. Like we hailed from, kings and queens, and, to kind of turn off the noise that's sometimes on the news or on social media. So that's my end goal, really. It's not really connected to like financial success or wealth, I guess, but rather to elevate our voices to show that we're not all the same, that there's diversity within our race, and that, that we matter.
Absolutely. And those are great goals. I mean, money doesn't always have to be the motivation. I even know for myself that's definitely not the motivation. I mean, because my legacy for myself is to be able to impact people, impact lives, and add value to other people, because when the day comes when I'm not here anymore, and for whatever reason, what I did influences somebody else to pursue their dreams, and somehow, some way that influenced the next person. Like you just wanna pass the torch on to the next generation.
Right.
So.
And when you chase money, it's like, are you missing life if you're so worried about reading the Facebook thread?
Right.
I have to unplug. Like my daughter, when she gets home from school, it's like that's her time. And, she knows mommy has a business, but I focus on her because like she is more important than the business. So I think that's something so important. Perhaps a great note to end on is self-care, because I know I totally lack in that area at times, but we really have to take care of ourselves, take care of, I was teasing you because you had like a green smoothie. When I walked in, I came and I don't even know what it was I drank, but it was healthy. But, take care of our health, take care of our mindset, go back to like that quiet time, meditate, and just have self-care and unplug. Absolutely.
So anybody that may be watching that, may have connected with your story or anything that you said, what would be the best place people can connect with you?
You can reach me on social media, of course. On Facebook, we have pages for all of the things that are under Motormouth. Diary of a First-Time Mom is the Facebook page. You can also reach me on Twitter at Dear Mom Diary, or you can send me an email, heather@motormouthmultimedia.com.
Nice. Awesome. Well, I definitely appreciate you coming on,
thank
Heather.
You. Thanks for having me
absolutely.
on. I don't know how much value that was.
Oh, no. I feel like it was definitely highly valuable. I'm telling you, a lot of what you said is definitely good. And I feel like, the viewers watching are definitely going to get a lot out of it, too. So, believe me, trust me.
Thank you. I came in with key messages, and then we just talked, which is nice. It was just a natural conversation.
Absolutely. So, I definitely want to continue to build upon this relationship as well. So, for everybody that's watching, I definitely highly appreciate you watching and tuning in. Now that we know what Heather does with her 24 hours, I want to know what you do with your 24 hours. Definitely like, subscribe, turn on notifications, leave a comment down below, and we will see you on the next episode.